So when we talk about some of the absolutely most disappointing Pokemon throughout the years, I think Rotom Fan really stands out as one of the biggest misses. And there's multiple reasons for that, but I first want to talk about where Rotom Fan has seen success, because it's not a miss like Slacking, for example, where it just has never been good. Or Regigigas, where maybe on this one Gen 6 NU team it kind of worked out, but still was pretty bad. So if we're going to talk about where Rotom Fan has succeeded, I think the first step is looking at Gen 5 NU, where to this day it actually remains one of the better mods in the tier. And you see Scarf and Expert Belt the most commonly in my experience. Choice Scarf is pretty nice because it's one of those utility Scarfers, I'll call it, even though it's investing in its offenses, where you're looking at a mon that, through speed tier and defensive typing, it actually offers quite a lot to teams. So you've got a mon that outspeeds and revenge kills any Sock variant. Superior, you're not taking a whole lot from an HP Ice, and you can revenge kill it with Air Slash. Of course, you outspeed as well, so you make those substitute Leech Seed shenanigans a little bit less consistent. You're not a mon that's getting O-code by +2 Aqua Jet from a Samurott, so you have more leverage against it. You revenge kill Sawsbuck, which is really nice. And then if you think about other stuff defensively, we mentioned the fighting resist, and even, the implied grass resist, but also being a ground immunity is pretty nice. It's helpful in this tier because of how present Golurk is. To have a mod that can at least help reposition against Golurk, although it does run a lot of utility sets nowadays, the mod is still really strong. And it helps to have something as good as Rotom Fan to be able to offer that pivot where you switch it on the EQ and then you switch to something else on the, Ice Punch or the Stone Edge, whatever is coming out next. And even when you look at mons that want to check Rotom Fan, I mean, Electros gets a Scarf dumped on it and then it's kind of useless for the rest of the game. Something like a Golem doesn't hold up as well against Air Slash as you'd like it to, especially when you throw in Hazards damage. The same goes for Seismitoad, where once you have a Spike Up, you've got really good odds to just 3-hit KO with Air Slash anyway. And then, Regirock, the other prevalent Flying Resist, just takes a lot from Air Slash. And then, you want to talk about how Rotom Fan's already kind of hard to switch into with Scarf sets? E-Belt takes that to the next level, because now those mentions of Golem, Seismitoad, even Golurk, they are not really switching in consistently at all, because you've got HP Grass, and you just smash them immediately on the switch. And so, while you do lose the utility of Choice Scarf, and as a result, no longer is good at revenge killing certain Pokemon, something like a Superior is going to stall you out. A Samurott still gets revenge killed by you, but hey, not as bad against other Pokemon that are faster. Think about a Choice Scarf Sock now. You're not revenge killing that. Even a Fighting Gem Primeape, or any other offensive item Primeape, you can't revenge kill that anymore. Something like a Floatzel no longer cares about you. So despite you losing a lot of the utility, you become a lot more potent offensively, and really shred a lot of the cores that don't have an Electros. Teams end up having to rely a lot more on offensive pressure to deny you from just tearing through them. And it's kind of hard to do that too when the mon is reasonably fast. Like we mentioned some of the Pokemon it was outspeeding, but again, you outspeed Braviary, you outspeed non-Choice Scarf Sock, you outspeed Samurott. There's a lot of prevalent Pokemon that you get the jump on, and that is pretty helpful. Also, I guess I should mention with Scarf too, Charizard. That's a pretty big mod to be able to revenge kill and KO. And then we jump ahead 2 generations, because I'm going to keep it a stack. If it's had success in Gen 6 or 7, I wasn't there for it. But I know in Gen 7 NU, it's absolutely irrelevant, and Gen 7 PU, I don't think it's very good in either. But Gen 8 and NU, there were a couple points actually where Rotom Fan was pretty reasonable. And one of the points was before we got all the DLC, where it just didn't have a lot of competition, and its stats were noticeably more useful. This is in addition, of course, to heavy-duty boots being introduced in this generation, which was a huge thing for Rotom Fan. Now you're a much better pivot, and once it got Pain Split back from Pokemon Home, it was actually just a pretty nice utility mod. Nasty Plot, I don't remember when it got released, but of course it also became a pretty good Nasty Plot user, because a lot of the Pokemon that were around at the time weren't exactly wanting to switch in and then contend with you as you boosted. You know, something like a Piloswine, for example. You don't need too much damage on that for Air Slash to start getting dicey to switch into at +2. Something like Sandaconda, I mean, that's just not a check to you. Ground type does not check the flying type, even though it's also an electric type. But I think the really big moment for Rotom Fan, where it was a definitively meta Pokemon in Gen 8, was in the metagame we had around the first ever Smogon Champions League. Or it was like the last ever Snake Draft, it doesn't matter, it's this tour. Where Rotom Fan was really relevant because of all that it did defensively, put heavy emphasis on this set right here. Its typing was so crucial when you look at a lot of the common Pokemon. In particular, Ninjask was everywhere, and Gallade was also an insane threat. So having this Rotom Fan that was actually able to sort of stave off these Pokemon was really huge. Especially in the case of Ninjask, where a lot of the Pokemon that checked Ninjask still got the criticism of, where's your recovery at, bozo? Rotom Fan at least has a Pain Split. Rotom Fan can run heavy-duty boots and not worry about switching in and taking hazards every turn. So even though something like a Duraludon was maybe bulkier and a better overall Pokemon, all it had was leftovers going for it. And so if spikes went up and you couldn't find a way to remove them, yeah, I mean, at a point, the Ninjask is going to have U-turned on you enough to then boost up with Swords Dance and just KO you the next turn. With a Rotom Fan, that's a lot more complicated, because it's not as easy to chip down. And so, it's actually really, really relevant in that tournament. Naturally, it fell off immediately after we got DLC. The Crown Tundra one. But, hey, it was good for that moment. And now, in Gen 9, I mean, this mod's not really seen at all. But I do think it's a pretty okay option. A little bit slept on. Nasty Plot's just really strong. It has the same moves as Oricorio Pom Pom for stab. Okay, that's the same stab as Oricorio Pom Pom. I guess not the same moves. They're basically the same power, right? T-Bolt and Revelation Dance are the same power, and they both ran Air Slash if they wanted. So, it's kind of the same. Just a lot more immediate power, because now you've got Nasty Plot. So they don't get the speed boost or the bulk boost, you're able to just go full in on your offenses and say, I don't care, I don't have recovery, I don't have this extra just survivability even that the bulk or speed would give me. I'm just trying to boost once and start tearing down your defensive cores. And I mean, it's not a bad mon, it's just kind of hard to justify, I feel, in this format, where you really do want a lot more utility from your Pokemon, I found, on a game-by-game basis. And, I mean, something like a Braviary does this a little bit better. Something like still any of the Oricorios we still have does that a little bit better. Even like a regular Rotom I've kind of found to be better because you run leftovers on this and haha, you have some recovery. Or you can run Scarf more effectively because you're not weak to Stealth Rock. Even Jolteon I like more as a setup mod because its speed tier is just so high. And Jolteon's special attack even. A little higher than Rotom's. We were looking at 110 versus only 105. So, Rotom Fan, although it's not bad, it's still kind of outclassed. And that's kind of been the story for it too when you compare it to the other Rotoms. And let's finally look, why has Rotom Fan been cursed for generations? Well, there's two things that really stand out. The first of them, of course, is, why am I Levitate if I'm a flying type? I gain... Like, Rotom Fan has no ability as far as I'm concerned. You know, it's not even like it's relevant in the Excadrill, because I'm a flying type. Earthquake, I don't care about your Mold Breaker. It ignores my Levitate, okay, I've got flying type. You cannot hit me with Earthquake. There's nothing it does for you. You know, Gravity still affects you the same way. It's not like, oh, I've got 2 immunities to ground, so I'm super immune to it. So even Gravity, that only takes away one. Like, no, it's not how Pokemon works. You still get got. Like, I don't know what they were doing when they decided, yes, the Fan needs to also be a flying type, but we're not going to give, like, different abilities to each of the Rotoms when they change form. We're going to still have them all be Levitators, even though some of them look like, you know, at the time, Rotom Wash, for example, it was on the ground. They could have justifiably not given Rotom Wash Levitate. It would have made sense, at least from the model. But no. They did, and all the others got it too. So you're looking at a flying type with Levitate. So, okay. Amon doesn't have to necessarily have the best ability ever. You know, we've seen Pokemon with bad abilities still see use. I think that bad ability is a little different from completely useless, but hey, maybe there's still something to it. No, no. You want to look at disrespect? Why do I have Air Slash? This is Gen 5 too, by the way. They could have given me Hurricane. They could have buffed Rotom Fan and said, you know what, in Gen 5, you have Hurricane. And they could have even done it in such a way where they just gave the other Rotoms the weaker stab attack. Like, you know, give Rotom Mo Energy Ball, so it has both Leaf Storm and E-Ball. Give Rotom Wash, I don't know, Scald, so it has Scald and Hydro Pump. There were lots of outs for them to at least retcon Rotom Fan into having that super strong special attack, just like all the other Rotoms. But no. They decided, Rotom Fan, you're not even mid. You're straight buns. They did everything in their power to make this mod just very, very weirdly designed. And it's through these like two things that I think really have hurt its viability over the gens. Keep in mind, it didn't get Nasty Plot even till Gen 8. So it's not like along the way it was having Nasty Plot and still being bad. No, it just didn't have really any reason to be used. Especially when you compare it to the other Rotoms. It was never going to have a niche over any of them. And a lot of the Rotoms do see a lot of use because, well, they're so good utility-wise. They got Defog in Gen 7. They've always had good typings, and having access to a really strong move, that just naturally helps you. They've been great pivots because all of them are pretty good defensively too, bar Rotom Frost, which instead is stab Bolt Beam coverage incarnate. So it's not like Rotom Frost was struggling to find some niche somewhere. But Rotom Fan, I mean, yeah, over the years it's kind of, you know, it's had its moments for sure, and it still has a super, super solid spot in Black and White in you, but I'm so sorry. On behalf of Pokemon fans everywhere, Rotom Fan, I apologize. You were done very dirty.